Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Radical Edge of HR. I am your host, of course, Tanya Hawley. I'm on the marketing team here at HR Knowledge Source and very happy to be with you again. We have a very special show for you. Have some very special panelists today that I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to. So please help me welcome Senior HR Consultant, Mr. Troy Taylor. Hey, Troy.
Hey, how you doing today, Tanya?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks
Can
for
you tell
asking.
our audience something about yourself?
Sure. My name is Troy Taylor. I'm a senior HR consultant with HRKS, and I'm also executive coach and trainer and facilitator as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Troy. And we also have the amazing Mr. Jared Johnson. Welcome, Jared.
Thank you so much. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. Can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Just real quickly, I'm a senior HR consultant with HRKS as well. And of course, I bring about 13 years of executive HR experience to the group, and just great to be on an amazing team, and so grateful.
Wonderful. We're happy to have you. Thank you both for joining me. So, for the last 2 years, actually, guys, I can't believe it. This is our third annual Black History Month edition of
Nice.
Radical
Great.
Edge of HR.
Great.
Yes.
Very
And
good. Very good.
we got the fellas with me today. Hey.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank
That's
you all
right.
so yes, I'm excited.
Uh,
But thank you all so much for joining me just to have a little discussion about this very special month of February, which we know as Black History Month. So we're going to dive in. For those that are joining us, if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and post them, and I'll be happy to read them or ask Troy and Jared to answer any questions you may have. So we're going to go ahead and dive in for these few minutes. So just to start it off, can you tell me, and Troy, I'll start with you, and then Jared, you can answer as well, but just
okay.
tell me the meaning and purpose behind Black History Month for you. Can you share that with us?
Whoa, yeah. The meaning and purpose behind Black History Month for me. I mean, it's so loaded when you say that. I think when I was younger, it just really, in the time period I grew up in, it really meant a sense of pride and stuff, to identify with other individuals that look like me that accomplished so much
Mhm.
throughout, not only Black history, which is actually American history, right?
Mhm.
Right.
And so identify with that, going through my life and even having a family where now I have books and stuff that I read to my younger son. I have an older child and a younger son. Just really want that to be ingrained in
Mhm.
his head, a sense of accomplishment, a sense of pride of things that his people accomplish, from a cultural standpoint, but also from being a part of this country. Because again, Black history is a part of American history. So just a sense of pride in the things that we accomplish and to continue to aspire for. So really has a deep and layered meaning for me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Troy. And Jared?
Yeah, I had to kind of say the same thing in regards to what Troy was saying. When I started thinking about what it truly meant to me, and again, going back in my time frame, it was all about Black excellence, and really, really advocating, the history. One of the things I'm very firm on. I'm a historian by I say by default, or at least by, my own personal interest. I think about a lot of times of our ancestors, and we've
Mhm.
oftentimes talked about standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, and what they've done and paved the way for us. And I think it's a great opportunity. I had one time I got a chance to have lunch with Harry Belafonte. And
Wow.
yeah, and of course, had this lunch with Harry Belafonte, and shame on me for not knowing so much of the dynamics of his involvement in civil rights movement, and
Yes,
just
yes.
really get a chance for him to kind of share some things with us, and really gave me some insights. And of course, we talked about the practical, we talked about Dr. King, and his movement, and his ability to kind of help facilitate that from an economic standpoint, and really, was kind of a financier when you come to look at terms of
Mhm.
the civil rights movement. So, I think about those things because again, we've come so far, but yet we still have so far to go.
Yes.
And I think that, we have to always understand it from our ancestors and those who came before us and really understood the sacrifices that they made and the sacrifices that they went through, just to make sure that we have, some equality as we have now and have a better life. So,
Mhm.
I'm grateful for that. And I'll always be eternal grateful for, those type of conversations and really just understanding from an ancestral standpoint.
Oh, absolutely. Can I just go back for a minute and just relish in the fact that you just said you got to meet Harry Belafonte? I'm just saying, what?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was. You know what? It was funny. I was at the time I was working with the National Credit Union League, and of course, we were doing some initiatives in regards to looking what they consider some of the most economic deprived areas in the United States. And we talked about, some areas in southern Alabama, just below of Selma, and of course into Mississippi, and they call it the Black Belt for whatever horrible name that's been in consideration. But we got a chance to meet and got a chance to have dinner. Actually, I met him in Birmingham, Alabama, and we got a chance to just go into details in regards to just history, and just kind of let you know a lot of the things that were going on behind the scenes that we only saw, and of course, I think he was saying it was amazing that here it was in the 50s. He's a direct descendant from slaves. His parents were slaves in Jamaica. And of course, they migrated to Miami, and then he left Miami and moved to New York, where he became famous for the song Dale. I'm not a
Right.
singer, but so everyone's know of. And of course, he mentioned that thought process, and he said what he did not understand was the fact that how can a black man in America, now he's in the 50s, he becomes a multi-millionaire because of that one song transcended over different languages, various countries. And of course, we know all the movies of Carmen Jones and all the
Right.
different history of his movie, Buck and the Preacher, just a lot of things we can kind of go into his cinematography. But with that being said, he brought the fact, he said he felt the call. And
Mm.
he said, at this point, how can you be a multimillionaire and what can I do? And so he said at that point, someone had told him about a preacher out of Atlanta, which is Dr. King, that was doing some great things. And he said at that point, he felt that was his call. He had the influence, number one,
Right.
because of course he was very close with JFK and Robert Kennedy. And they were, he said at that point, he had always had connections. If Dr. King was put in jail, or CIA was really trying to scrutinize him, he can kind of push back and get JFK to kind of play some things in that because of the friendship. So he just said, you never understand why the universe puts you into favor and give you such favor with with men and with people of high, echelons, to allow them to be able to, be able to that facilitator for you, and when you need them, especially in the civil rights movement. So it was a great opportunity. I just said, I promise you, I sat there with my mouth just completely
Oh, I'm sure.
jarred. I love to talk and engage, but that time I was like, oh my God, it was just such a wealth of knowledge, and
Yes.
he brought me from that point up to 1968. And he, I won't share with that part. He said 1968, we've kind of hit the brakes on a lot of things, but he would say, it's important that we do understand where we come from.
Oh, that is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Jerry. That is wonderful. Very unique experience to share with those that are watching and listening. And that story was just powerful. What a great story for Black History Month. Thank you for that.
Well,
So let's go ahead and just continue our discussion, because we could probably talk about just that for the rest of the show. But we got a few other questions we want to get to. But just if you all have some suggestions or ways that you celebrate at work or at home for Black History Month. Troy, you want to go ahead and share some of your ideas with that?
Sure. So aside from really books of introducing it to my children, especially my youngest one, it's a constant ingraining into myself, right? To remembering to make it a part of my thoughts and my thinking in terms of those who came before us, and whether it's Mansa Musa, to a king from West Africa, all the way forward, you know, to doctors or lawyers or people that's doing things today, or even people that's on the forefronts of civil rights. And so really just taking that thought, you know, putting it in part of our life, and also having a Juneteenth celebration as well, right? So again, ingraining that into, you know, our everyday life as well, and really having a conversation, and not only having a conversation with friends or families, but also of allies, people that don't look like us, of having that conversation of the richness of Black history, and how much it paved the way for so many different industries in America, and really having that conversation as well in terms of in a celebratory sense. So really walking it from that standpoint for sure.
That's good. Yes. And how old is your son?
My son is Troy Jr. He's 6.
Okay, so that's
he's 6. So he
great.
he wanted to go to school dressed as Martin Luther King today.
I love it.
Because we're watching all these videos and reading books and just continue to ingrain that in him now, just to have that on the forefront of thinking as well.
Oh yes, and what I hear you saying, Troy, is you have to make a conscious decision to do it. The effort in your home, at work, or wherever, the conversation, whether it's with your kids, you have to make a conscious decision to do something, or else it'll just go by. The whole month will just go by, and it'll be gone. I'm not saying it just has to be this month, but in celebration of Black History Month. Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, Jared, did you want to get some insight? What you make?
Yeah, just, you know what, I appreciate Troy bringing it up, because I think it was something that you know, with my daughter, you know, being able to really bring some awareness as well, you know, and this is something, again, since, you know, she was very, very young, and really getting her, you know, acclimated and understanding Black history, you know, and we've had these, that's my, you know, my brainchild there. We go through these different deep dialogues, and we go, you know, it's a different subject matters, you know, but just giving her the awareness of understanding where she's coming from. You know, there's a saying, if you don't know where you come from, you're not going to understand truly where you're going. And so, you know, with that being said, you know, we've talked in depthness of just the history, and I, you know, saying, you know, these things you see now, and of course we've seen a lot of decay, of course, in some of our communities, and a lot of, you know, unnecessary things that were unfortunate for us as a group. But the reality of it is, if we go back as historians again to understand, you know, and I like to go back, you know, into the 20s and the 30s, and we, you know, we could talk about the Harlem Renaissance period and those movements, things where there was such a heavy emphasis on Black excellence, Black education, and these things were just phenomenal. So those are the kind of foundations I always try to stick to. You know, I stuck with my daughter about awareness and making sure that she remains aware. I've heard a couple of things. It was funny. What's this the actor's name? Morgan Freeman. You know, he's been an advocate, say he's against, you know, Black History Month, because he feels that, in a sense, it's more patronizing, you know, of understanding history, you know, and we need to understand it's not just a month. This is something that's ongoing and every day. So I think it behooves us to continue on those conversations, whether we're at home, whether we're at work. You know, unfortunately, in some corporate settings, you have the opportunity, you know, when certain negative connotations happen, or of course, that may affect or shake the Black community. That's usually when conversations wants to come up, and they want to ask you, well, how do you feel? And, you know, just kind of, you know, very cavalier, you know, go around the corner, try to get the information from you. But the reality of it is that this is something we have to constantly, because I think we see too much negative connotation against us as African American, especially African American men. I read an article this morning, and it was saying that the highest suicide rates now, out of any group now, is African American men. And I was like, oh my God, you know, it's just a lot of things I started to think about in regards to that. So, you know, we have to constantly, you know, be advocates in our home, be advocates in our job, constantly remind ourselves, you know, that we come from Black excellence. You know, we originate from kings and queens. You know, that's one of the things. I don't want to use a shameful plug here, but HRKS is one of the things I do love about being a part of this team. You know, because I'm seeing, you know, women of color you know, just
Yes.
being amazing and doing amazing things. And of course, you know, there was an article come out, yeah, I think a couple of days ago, they were saying that how now women of color are leaving their jobs more and starting their own business and
Own businesses.
entrepreneurship. So I
Yes.
think this is amazing. This is a time for us as men and Black men to embrace the femininity, embrace this movement, and make sure that we can be what we need to be in our positions to continue on the progress that we're making.
Yes. Two things came to mind, Jared, when you were saying that. One is when you were talking about the 20s, and you know, it's almost the attire we wore, how we dressed. It's almost a sense of royalty to me. My husband and I always talk about those zoot suits, and you know,
but we're
just how the
elegant.
women dressed. They were always so
elegant. Absolutely.
You know, I love that. That's our history, though. I
That's
love
our history.
And the other thing was, if anyone watching needs some ideas of where to go, what to do during Black History Month, or if you want to see, you know, you can visit a museum, see some Black exhibits. You can read a book by a Black author, support Black businesses. One of my favorites, the cover of Essence magazines has Pinky Cole, the owner of a new restaurant, not so new anymore, but Slutty Vegan. I don't know if you've heard of Slutty Vegan.
Yeah.
But, it's one of the fastest growing ones, owned by a Black woman. If you haven't tried it, it is good. I'm just telling y'all. I'm not a vegetarian, but I had to try it, and it was delicious. A colleague here at HRKS told me about it, and my husband and I went, and it was really good. The line was literally out.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You know, one of the things I want to share too, if everyone who's ever listening now, if you have not had the opportunity, you should do it. Go and visit the Smithsonian African American Museum in Washington, D.C.
Ooh.
It will change your life. I will tell anyone just that visit of seeing our history and where it all began, and all of a sudden to where we're at this point now. It is definitely a life-changing experience. So I admonish anyone to go out there and at least take the time now. Since things are starting to open back up, go out and visit.
Yeah, and I would add that the museums and exhibits, Incarceration Museum in Alabama, and the slavery, the slaves that was killed. There's exhibit 2, so there's 2 parts. There's one, and then they'll have a bus that take you to another one. So one focuses on slaves and the ones that was killed, and the second one focuses on incarceration rates in our community, and you know, to things that's going on now. So when we say history, a lot of times people thinking way back, we're talking about still current now, things that's going on. So those is very powerful if you're in the general South area as well. Just opposed to being up north going to Smithsonian.
Yes, those are great ideas. Great places to go if you have the opportunity. One thing people can do right at home is watch a Black documentary, movie. One of my favorite things is watching Black movies. I love music and entertainment, so a lot of things I like to do have that involved with it. Like some of my favorite movies are music movies. Let's say The Wiz. That's one of my favorites.
That's a great movie.
I call that's some Black history right there, The Wiz. Not as far back as some of our other stuff, but that's a good one.
I'm gonna go with Love Jones. Love Jones will always be one of my favorites.
Well, what about like Cooley High?
Cooley High. Yeah, you taking me back now.
I'm just a little bit back. I'm just saying, but there's also some great documentaries. My favorite movie of all is Sparkle, the original Sparkle.
The original Sparkle, the original one.
Sparkle is one of my
favorites. Michael Thomas, what's his name? Michael Thomas. I know his name.
Philip Michael Thomas. I know his name, Jared. It's Philip Michael Thomas. I'm just saying. You got to get it right.
You said that personal.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I would, Tanya, I would have to go with The Wiz with you. Being from New York, my mom took me and a friend to see The Wiz, originally with Stephanie Mills.
I did too.
And then I think one of the very early movies we seen was The Wiz, after that. And so I have to go with you that as well.
Yes, it's a classic that a lot of people know nothing about. So,
what they're saying, they're getting ready now to reboot. What is it? Mahogany. Remember the original Mahogany with Billy Williams, Billy Williams, and Diana Ross. So they're getting ready to do a reboot to Mahogany.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's gonna be a tough one to reboot.
Well,
Okay.
Suzanne Pass, who was
Yes.
heavily involved in the original,
Yeah, from
casting of the
Motown.
movie at that point for Motown, she's actually involved in the new storyline and how they're going to reboot it. So that's something we got to look
Ooh.
forward to.
Y'all heard it right here. You don't know what you might get from HRKS. You got all kind of little tips
Listen,
going on.
we supposed to be talking HR.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. We just got a couple more questions and a couple more minutes. The next one. In what ways have businesses progressed with diversity in your insight, in your opinion? So whoever wants to start, Troy, you've been starting. I don't know if you want to go ahead and start this one as well.
Okay. So that, we've seen a trend with companies start to move more in the DEI space. The companies that are more forward thinking, really realize early on that that is the thing to do, and it had a business application in terms of innovation and creativity, and not all people thinking the same because they don't all come from the same place. And we know diversity is not just what you look like; it's your thought process and different things as well. And so, of course, with the events in the country, the social unrest, and and there's been more of a shift for companies to really get to realize, there's some things that we need to address. How should we address it? And for some companies, they really are opening themselves up to it. And when they expose themselves to it, they realize that there's some real work that needs to be done, right? And what that means, and how do we take a DEI lens and it not become something that we do, but something that we become, right? And so that's really coming into a space where you co-create the space. It's the white majority and the people of color help co-create the space of what it should look like and moving forward. So we've seen a lot of companies do it, and it starts a lot of times with training, and then sometimes, of course, it has to move to coaching and some other things. And so we're seeing is whether from HRKS or from coaching in different spaces that companies are starting to move to that. There are some companies that's moving faster than others, right?
Yes.
In all honesty, but they're coming to the lens that when it's all said and done, it's still internal work that you have to do, right? Because it starts from the inside and then it goes from there. And so it's about having that conversation and creating that space where you can have that conversation, because it could be uncomfortable at first.
Right.
But like all uncomfortable conversations, you don't want to do it. But when you engage it and you get on the other side, like, man, I'm happy I did that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I love that word, that co-create word. I love that word.
Beautiful.
Yes. Jerry?
No, Troy. I mean, I think Troy really hit the nail on the head with that. And the thing I thought about the process is, we've come a long way, but we still got a quite a distance to go here in regards to it. I think what has occurred is, for those companies who are progressive and progressive-minded leaders, they've come to the grips with the fact that the conversation do need to be addressed. The conversations need to be at the table. So I think it really has led to a time, as you said, in that DEI space where now, there are more focus groups that are being, created within the type of organization, and of course, more emphasis on the culture as well. And as we know now, there's also a scenario where there's a talent, surge and being able to manage the talent pool there with the organization itself. Companies now become a little bit more deliberate in their hiring, and they should become more deliberate in their hiring and making sure that their culture is expressing diversity. So again, I have to just say, Troy, you kind of nailed it on the head with that. That's where we're at right now, and hopefully we keep on putting some pressure on it. We will continue on to see more advances. One of the things I'm super proud of, I can't think of her name right now, but the young lady, Porsche, just announced she's became one of the C-suite executives at Porsche, and she's the first African American woman in history, to go work for, a German company at that C-suite level. And so it's amazing to see, people of color making moves and making power moves, and definitely expression of Black history.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry, everyone. I don't know what just happened to my camera, but I'm still here.
Okay.
Just stop working. I can still see you all. So we'll just continue the conversation. I'm smiling, I promise. One thing that we talked about offline, I wanted to just touch on right quick was we talked about companies and progressing, international companies that may have a large American employees, or they may not recognize, or they don't celebrate Black History Month or other holidays. And we were talking about that a little bit, um, how to deal with that, or what companies they have to acknowledge that in some way. Do you all want to touch on that? And Jerry, you had said one about
Yeah,
the days
I
off.
think what you kind of we alluded to. I was sharing my experience. I worked for a company that was based out of Spain, and we were in 51 countries, had about 36,000 global employees, and just a plethora of individuals from everywhere all over the world. But one of the things they wanted to make sure, they were at least acknowledging Black History Month, or at least acknowledging, Dr. King Day. So they would give us a choice. You can, use, your floating holiday for Dr. King's Day, or you could use it for Christopher Columbus Day. So, it was hilarious, in regards to it. And I think I was joking with you guys offline. We were talking. I said, maybe I want to take my Dr. King's Day in July, where it's close to my birthday, because it's warm.
Yes,
So
yes,
at least I think at least the gesture it was there, and then back to just what you said. You have a lot of, you'll be surprised. There's a lot of people of color and Black expats that are working globally. They're working in companies from anywhere in Europe, as far as to the Middle East, as far as Central and South America. So you do see those Black expats starting to go global and work for global organizations.
yes. And Troy, did you want to touch on that as well?
Oh no, I just seen that. I've heard of more campaigning through Congress that other potential holidays are potential in play. In terms of recognition of Black History Month, or figures from Black history. And so, of course, we got the Martin Luther King day, but there's other days that others have tried to petition, because again, it is still also what part of the American fabric, right? Just
Yes,
like others as well. So
yes. Okay, and thank you both for that. That was just very interesting to me when you had shared that, Jerry. But the final question I have for both of you is, how do we foster Black excellence and Black leadership by expanding beyond the borders? And Jared, do you want to answer that one and start with that? And Troy, you can chime in if you have anything.
No worries, because I can kind of chime in too. I think initially we were talking about that particular question, and we wanted to bring up as a sense of discussion. I think now we are primed. We have constantly only been limited to what we see within America. And I was sharing with you guys that there, even if you go into areas of Brazil, and I would use for example Santiago, Brazil, they're listing that right now is the number one Black Silicon Valley. There's so many Black-owned companies and Black-owned techies that are there in that area, that region. So we're starting to see this surge. At least I see a surge where, we're starting to think outside the box and understand that we're just not on an American mission, but we're also on a global mission. Slavery was global. It was a global business. It wasn't only a business that was, singled out to America. So with that being said, I think it behooves all of us to kind of think outside of our box and understand that, if I don't want to use the word, if we're not being received in our own hometown, we have to be
Right.
willing to look at other opportunities and be able to look at other locations, even geographically, that may suit us. And I think I brought with you to the point we were talking about that particular set. I say, as a historian, I study, individuals and how they made certain moves that could have been radical, for their time period. We're talking about the 20s and the 30s, and your W. Du Bois and some of your great leadership that was in that time frame. And unfortunately, we know some of the stories where they had to eventually leave America, and a lot of people ventured to France because, the 50s in the entertainment world, but France because they were more accepting of Black culture, more accepting of their art and different things of nature. So we have to kind of be conscious of that and make sure, as we start to continue on Black excellence and building, let's look beyond the United States a little bit. I don't want to scare anyone from Black History Week of America, but we got to kind of, see beyond our borders and understand, there's another world, a whole world is out there and there are people that is willing to embrace us and embrace our culture, embrace our ethnicity, and make sure that they give us the tools that we can be successful in other realms.
Great. All right. Thank you, Jared. We actually are out of time.
Oh.
But in closing, I don't want to jip Troy. So Troy, in closing, was there anything you want to leave everyone with in this?
Yeah, I would just say, at the end of the day, everybody wants the same thing. They want to be acknowledged and validated for who they are and their existence. And so from Black excellence, right? Really knowing who we are and really striving and seeing that people have laid the foundation before us and continue to take that and go beyond. And with creating the value the way you do. And so whether you're entrepreneur or intrapreneur, continue to work hard, continue to strive, and then continue to connect with others and show that excellence.
Excellent. Excellent, Troy. I love it.
Yes, well said, and a great way to end our show. So thank you both, Troy and Jared, so very much for joining me this evening. I'm sorry you can't see me. I don't know what's happening, but it's okay.
No worries. We know you.
I appreciate you both taking the time on this Black History Month to have this candid discussion. I appreciate you both so very much.
Absolutely.
On behalf of HR Knowledge Source, we thank you all for watching and listening. If you have any questions on diversity and inclusion or anything else that has to do with HR, feel free to hit us up at hrknowledgesource.com. That's our website. Of course, you can email us at clientsolutions@hrknowledgesource.com and follow us on all of our social media, which is at HRKS LLC. And as always, at HRKS, we know HR. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks, Troy.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, take it easy. All right, thanks.